Hey everybody, it's Paula here and welcome back to another week of the Zoomed Out Crypto Show. What we're going to look at this week is the Ethereum chart, and I'm going to give my analysis of where I think this is heading over the next few weeks. But before we get stuck into this video, I do hope that you will smash that like button and do hit that subscribe button too, so you don't miss any more of these videos. Now let's hop over to the Ethereum chart and take a look at what's going on over the last while. So we haven't visited this chart since December because we do only visit each chart once a month. And in December, we were back down here and I was talking about this trend line that needed to be broken. And we can see that we have blasted past not only this trend line, but also this more macro trend line that's been in existence since May 2022. So on the daily time frame, we've managed to blast past this, and not just blast past it, but also close above it on 2 consecutive days. So this is a really, really positive sign. But what I do want to highlight on this chart is the RSI, and we can see the RSI here on the daily is showing as oversold, and it is starting to turn around and come back down again. Now, just because the RSI is coming back down and shown oversold doesn't mean necessarily that the price is going to roll over and drop back down into lower lows or anything. What could happen is we could see a consolidation before we see another large move like we've seen in the last week. So let's zoom out now on this chart. So we will move from the daily chart to the weekly chart, and we make this a little bit bigger so you can see it a lot more clear. So again, as I said, this macro trend has now been broken on the weekly chart, and we've closed 1 week above this. And what we're hoping to see is a second week. Now, we may find that it does come down and retest and then shoot back off again, or it may come back down and maybe find support along this previous resistance line that we have. Now, the red resistance line that we have has been in existence since the top in November 21. So it's a pretty strong resistance line that we've totally blasted through, which is a very positive move. And for this red line, we've actually closed 2 weeks above it already, which is a very strong signal. Now, the next resistance line on the way up that I have, we see is also been in existence since the top in November 21. And it's not as strong of a support line as the previous support line, as because there isn't as many touch points on it as there was on the previous one. So this one here might not hold too well. What we might find is if we come up around here, we've got a lot of resistance around 2,500, and we could find that we go up here before we start to tether off. Now, why am I talking about tethering off when the markets and everything has been green and has been looking good? It's the external factors, peeps. And to be honest with you, the external factors are still extremely concerning. Now, we did have the CPI index and all that out last week, and most of them came in line with what was forecast, except for the new employment claims in the States, and they came in slightly under. But what I would say on that is that they're December figures, and December figures are often inflated because of Christmas spending and things like that. And there's a lot of temporary staff hired to cover certain roles during that period. So the external factors for me are still very concerning. Other external factors are the FTX and the whole fallout from this. Now, I know the liquidators have recovered substantial sums from FTX, and that could be why there is a little bit more confidence in the market than there was beforehand. If we come down on the RSI here, we can see that the RSI has been pretty strong. And I'm not going to look at this little hiccup in it here because this week has literally started, so it's a false indicator here at the moment, and up to the end of last week it was still really strong, and it hasn't moved to the upper level to say that it has been oversold at all. We can see that this is going upwards, so if we draw a little trend line here, we can see that this has been going upwards, and it's not the most perfect of trend lines. I'll just take it and grab it, move it up a little bit. So we see it has been moving upwards while the pricing has been moving downwards. Now, that would be considered a bullish divergence because it's going in the opposite trend, the opposite direction to the direction of the actual price movement. So what am I hoping to see in the next week or so? Well, as I said, we may see a little bit of consolidation. We have had two green weeks, two very solid green weeks, and we may have a little bit of consolidation this week before we make another move, or it might even take longer than a week for this consolidation to happen. Let's hop over now and take a look at the monthly chart. And the more you zoom out on the chart, the trends that form in the longer time frames, the larger time frames, are much more solid trends. So the weekly trend is a solid trend, the monthly trend is a solid trend, daily trends kind of change an awful lot faster and move at a lot of a quicker rate. So here we are now, and I'm going to just delete this trend line that I drew down here in our RSI. And what I'll say about this RSI is on the monthly has only started to move up. And we may see now that the monthly exceeds the previous peaks here and that it starts to go in an upward directions. We can see that they're very close. The 14-day RSI is quite close to this yellow line, which is the smoother moving average. And when they cross, that is a bullish indicator. Now, looking at the monthly chart, we can see that a new high has not yet been formed. So this here is the January candle. That's the December candle. Now, we didn't see this at the end of December. We were only seeing the December candle close now for the first time in this show. And the December candle did close lower, closed right on this trend line here. But as we've seen from the weekly and the daily, we blasted through this. We also blasted through this trend line here. Now, what we could do is draw a new trend line going across here. And we can see with this new trend line now that we haven't made higher highs yet on this monthly chart. So we would be looking to go to around 16,058 and break above that before we see higher highs on this smaller time frame. And this smaller time frame being from the month of June 2022. So over 6 months ago now. So what we're hoping is that we will have a higher high, but what we still have is lower lows. So it'd be really, really interesting to see how this month actually fares out. As I said, the RSI is starting to look very, very strong on the monthly. It has pivoted upwards, but we do have strong support here, strong resistance here that we would need to break through before we could really confirm that the momentum has really changed in this. Now I'm going to go back again to the weekly chart. And in the weekly chart, what we're going to look at is the Helsinki hash candles. I can never pronounce that right. We're going to look at these candles, and we've looked at these before in Bitcoin. And we can see that these candles are considerably different to your normal candle. And you can see that there's very often or very seldom fake outs with these. Now we did have a fake out, a bit of a fake out here. We had a little bit of a fake out here, but now we have these three green candles in a row that they're looking quite strong. Now, what we don't want to see is the wick on the bottom of one of these green candles. We like to see a wick on the top of this candle, a nice strong wick. But we can see this has turned green on the weekly candle. On the monthly candle, if we can hop over here to the monthly candle now for this one, and we'll just expand it a little bit, we can see that the January candle, which we're in, is a green candle at the moment. But the January candle has not closed, and you cannot consider it green until it does close. But what we can see is how red the December candle actually closed. So the December was a really weak candle. Now we can see the previous months before this that they've wicks on top. And these wicks on top of the red candles means that it's not as strong of a drop as ones that have no wicks on the top. So this is a great indicator. I'm going to go back to the daily chart to look at this now, and we can see on the daily chart that the daily chart is still very, very strong using this candle as well. So what do I think is going to happen in the next week or in the next month? Well, let's just go back to our normal candles for a moment. And as I said, we've quite a lot of resistance, and we've touched through this before. We've touched it here, but then we broke above it and closed. We broke above it slightly and closed. We could get another fake out, but we're pushing towards it. And the more times we push against it, eventually we will break through. But I am saying all of this with a warning. Although it all looks extremely positive, don't forget about the external factors. We're in a situation where interest rates are still being hiked up. We're in a situation that they're talking about possible recession. The savings rates are at their lowest levels since the last recession. And there's a lot of indicators to point towards a possible recession, not only in the US, but also in the Eurozone and other places around the world. That means that there's less cash. And this could just be um, a retail type of a relief rally. And we haven't really seen a very decent relief rally happen in quite some time. So it would be nice to get some relief. And it will really depend then on all the other factors combined of whether that relief rally turns into something more sustainable or not. So that's it for this week's Zoom Out Crypto Show. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget to smash that like button. I hope to get this video up to about 25 likes this week if I can. And hit that subscribe button too so you don't miss any more of my videos.